Chris Dancy.
Hi.
Thanks so much for being on Team Human. It's been, we probably emailed for several years off and on in different ways.
Yes. I begged you to be on a show I did in 2013, a podcast. It was going to be global.
And what happened?
You were a big hit, and you were on. You were gracious, and I'm from the school of Rushkoff. I'm from Rushkoff. You read all the books, so I was nervous, almost as nervous as I was today, but it was good. You did a good job.
Oh, thanks.
Someone should put you on more shows.
So I want to. We haven't actually spoken live together in a long time, so I want to.
No, you hushed me up earlier. You said, no, save it.
I know.
Save
I
the
didn't
magic for when it's recording.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I want to go to the beginning of the story, sort of before you became a kind of a quantified self.
Indexable.
If you will. Yeah. And so indexable and the world's most connected man and all, as my Google search will tell me about you. So you were kind of having a hard time with life.
Yeah. Life Inc. happened to me, right?
Yeah.
So turned 40 in 2008 and weighed about 320 pounds, smoking 2 packs of cigarettes a day, 2 different blood pressure medicines, thyroid medicine, been on antidepressants at that point for 22 years, benzodiazepines at that point for 20 years, constantly angry, constantly raging, sex out the craziness, which the sex didn't change. That part's still there. I just had a lot of, I think, adult challenges, but I was propped up by a system that kept me going because I made some money for the company.
Doing what?
I was in IT, so I was a SQL DBA for my entire career from the 90s into the 2000s. By 2008, though, I'd been such a good DBA and did such a good job at explaining technology and problems that it actually moved me into sales engineering. So basically, they'd bring me in if they absolutely needed to close a sale. And then from there, I moved into cloud computing from 2008 to 2012. But they just prolonged the problem.
And then for some reason, you started documenting a lot of stuff that you were doing? You just had good files?
No, I just one of these things where one day I was looking at the screen. I was looking at my computer history, and I saw this porn and other things I was looking at. I was like, why don't I remember this? And I thought, why does my computer know so much about me? And it just became obvious to me in 2008 when I started the project. If I knew as much about me as the rest of the connected world, I might be able to make a difference. Being busy is hard, but forgetting is harder.
Right. So you basically noticed how much is sort of what I was looking at in around 1999 when I wrote Coercion. I was getting really concerned with the way that the techniques of the direct marketing industry, which was really just note cards about homes and your mortgage and your car and things like that, the way that was getting, automated by the digital world. Originally it was Oracle. Everyone was worried about that they had a CD-ROM with everybody on it, as if that
AOL,
was
AOL CDs.
Yeah, or that was going to destroy the world. But then you basically noticed that you're between your browser history and your
the
Google
browser
search
history, and then the other thing is I went to find something on MySpace, and I couldn't find it, and I couldn't search. And to this day, you can't search Facebook. If you want to find something you wrote on Facebook, you're screwed. So I thought, this is kind of shitty. This was really important. I told this person how I felt. Basically, I was weaponizing surveillance in our relationship, which we do every day. We just call it screenshots. And I couldn't find it. So I thought, okay, what can I do? And I just created a little teeny hack in the beginning on something called Yahoo Pipes, which just moves data from one place to another. And I just started moving anything I did in email or anything I did online into a Google Calendar. And then I started color coding it. And I could get way into the technical aspects, but we'll wait. You'll tell me how much you want.
So you had this Google Calendar with all these colors and things
Absolutely.
in it. And
Thousands of entries a day.
And you were living in Portland at the time?
At that time, I was living in Colorado. I was living in Denver.
And then when did you went to one of Amber Case's events?
Yeah. So how did I actually
Who was a
become
former guest on
Amber,
Team Human?
Yes. I mean, how can you not love Amber Case?
Right. A Portland cyborg.
She's my cyborg mother. She gave birth to my circuits. So yeah, I went to Portland to Cyborg Camp. Yes, there is a Cyborg Camp. Check it out online. And Amber, someone showed her what I was doing, and she says, "You got to show everyone." I'm like, "I'm too nervous." And then she just literally, I just showed the room, and in the room there was a reporter from Wired Magazine, a guy named Clint Finley. I'm a huge fan of Clint. Actually, I think we had you on our Mindful Cyborg podcast back in 2014. And Clint was, he was like, this is interesting. And then the first piece got written about me, but it was right after kind of mainstream web popularity. So I mean, yeah.
So they wrote that, and then what started to happen? Then you got deeper into this.
Well, I was already pretty deep into it by 2012, 2013 when I did the first, when I was at Cyborg Camp, I got discovered. One story led to 2 stories, led to 3 stories, led to being in TechCrunch, led to doing television, Fox News. I mean, I did so much TV in 2013, 2014. 2 things happened at that point.
And it's not just because you had a great calendar.
No, I think people were fascinated that I was somehow navigating having all of this. Can you? I don't know. Yeah, I started to swear. But having all
they
this.
prefer not because we're doing FM radio now.
But yeah, I had all these devices all over my body. I think 2 things happened. One thing is the business world was like, oh, we can extract what he's doing and understand how to get to our consumers more. And the other side of it was people were like, oh, you're a health story.
So we didn't cover it. So you had stuff on your body. You're not just recording stuff in Google. So you start putting things on. Like what?
So for the first 3 years, it was just anytime I touched a piece of technology. So 2008 to 2010, 2011 was anytime I touched. So any programs I used on my phone, on my computer, anywhere in my house. 2010.
But you what? You touched it. And then you wrote it down?
No. So the information is I did something. So if I saved a file, then just something watching my file system would say you saved a file. So I kept track of when I created work. What times a day was I productive? What times a day was I not productive? What time? So
but you didn't have to do this manually.
No, I wrote little triggers to capture all this. Nothing. So I'm recording right now with you, but you don't see me talking to you. This is kind of, I think, what fascinated people. But the media has a hard time seeing invisible.
Right.
So you have to show them things. Look at me typing, So, but by 2010, I started wearing things on my body. I went to an event in San Francisco and had my first body media, which was a galvanic skin response sensor. Got a posture sensor, which measured gait and posture. I started just layering things on top of my body.
Do you have things on your body now?
No.
Did you yesterday?
I know how to behave.
Did you have things yesterday or the day before?
No.
Like in the last week, have there been things?
No, the only thing I really have on my body now is my watch. It's kind of like meditation apps. One of my favorite people, his name is Rohan. He has a meditation app called Butterfly, and he says his goal is to get people to use the app so much that they don't need it anymore. So, you only need to wear a kind of posture sensor until you can't to stop slouching.
Right.
All right. So, yeah, I mean, a lot of the things I wore early on, I don't need to wear anymore.
And you had Google Glass, obviously.
I had a really cool trigger in Google Glass. So if I spent too much money, I would get messages sent to Glass telling me to stop. So if I was at the bar after 11 p.m., I would get messages telling me to stop. If I didn't stop, my family would get messages. And if that didn't stop, my credit card got locked.
Wow.
So I geofenced my behavior. Yeah.
Well, that's good for a 300-something pound man.
It was really good for a 300. Yeah, because, when you're 300 pounds, you can still get sex. You just pay for it.
One way or another.
One way or another, yeah. Sorry, that was probably a bridge too far.
No, there's no bridge too far on Team Human. But you started to lose weight because you were counting everything?
So I started losing weight because I started actually seeing my life in a way I hadn't seen it before. So one of the first kind of early hacks was just putting exercise into my routine to eat bad. Because when you weigh 320 pounds, you want fast food. You don't want healthy food. I had never even had anything green in my mouth by 2012. But understanding there was a relationship between putting something in my mouth and the amount of work I had to do to get it. So walking to McDonald's was a big deal in the beginning. McDonald's was a half a mile away, which almost killed me, but I ate anything I want once I got there. The problem was once I got to Subway, which is about a mile and a half away, it became harder to keep up the pace because now I'm going even further, but the food got a little bit healthier. And that's when I noticed there was a real inverse relationship between how much the food cost and its health quality, because I was also logging how much I spent on the food. So in the beginning, it was kind of one of these, how many metrics are stacking up here? I finally got a bike so I could go to Chipotle because Chipotle was the next level, both in price and health, but it was too far to walk. And once I got a bike, I kind of just started running to meals. And one thing leads to another. It's just all the information of your life that all these companies and technologies collect about you is unavailable to you, and therefore, I think, blinding and hurting people.
And it's unavailable to us because I suppose if we had the data, we would be able to use it to express autonomy and agency and make choices. Whereas if they have it, they can use it to manipulate our decisions and make money off us.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. That's why I'm pro Team Human.
Right.
But I had to go through a lot of Cyborg to get to the side of human.
Well, the trick with Cyborg, though, I mean, and I've written about it. I wrote about it a little in Coercion and later, I think, in Present Shock. I was reading about the My Life Bits project that Microsoft was doing, and that guy. Who's that guy?
I know you're talking
There's
about.
this guy there. Bell, I think, is his name.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, Gordon Bell.
Gordon Bell. And he was like, they gave him a bunch of money, and he was like their great test project. And on the one hand, he was saying, look, if we know this, and know how many steps you took, how many heartbeats you had, how many calories you ate, how many this, how many that, isn't that great? And there's this, and everybody you met, every word you said, there's this terrific record. And I just started to feel like he's almost talking about making a map that's bigger than the territory, you know, that no one is going to actually go back and read. Because if everything has equal value, then you don't have, this is not a, where's your special moments? You know, they're just all in that wash. I'm going to take a picture at that moment, but not every friggin' second, or I end up with what everyone has in their iPhone now is a zillion pictures.
Which you don't look back at.
Of course
no one looks back at
because
their
it's all
photos.
flat. It's all equal, you know, whereas if it was contoured, then I might. But the worst part of it is it seemed to me like what they were trying to do was convince us that this level of surveillance is okay. You know, so it's my life bits, but really what it is Microsoft's data engines. And it was sort of the precursor to this world now where kids are, you know, entering everything into their Facebook feed or their Instagram, every piece of information under this sort of false race for fame, but really it's just surrendering our data.
Yeah. And this is the thing was, to me, it was never about collecting data. Some of the biggest misconceptions in stories, and you can't get people to write about you the way you want because then it wouldn't be their story, it'd be yours.
Right.
Is it was, you know, you collected all this data, you wore this. No. I created behavioral fingerprints. What does fat look like? What does angry look like? What does undersexed look like? You know, what are the conditions? But the behavioral fingerprint still isn't enough because then you just have lovely ideas of what a habit gets created. Then it was about the condition of responses. So what could I do? So for example, if I went from 72, 73 decibels, which I'm right about now, up to 74 decibels, my lights would dim. So I always had to have the response to understand when I was entering a behavior so I could learn, oh, that's what that looks like. Because just having the data doesn't fix you. You have to have the loop, the feedback loop.
So it's almost a form of psychobiofeedback.
Yeah, I gaslighted myself. Yeah.
Right. So then if there is something, so if you're, let's say people are telling you, you know, occasionally you find out, gosh, can you lower your voice a little bit? It feels like you're being aggressive when you talk like that. If you hear that 2 or 3 times and you think, oh, why don't I put a little diode in my eye that lights up whenever I go above this certain decibel level and kind of retrain myself and go, oh, wow, why did I just get mad? Why did I just get loud then? Was I mad? Was I excited? Was I just need food?
And they're indistinguishable early.
Right.
They're indistinguishable early. Mad and excited. Right? So finding that, and today I have all sorts of crazy things I do with watching people rage on video to precondition myself to not be angry. So I take the poison early by outsourcing the empathy by watching someone actually lose their mind or have anxiety. So there's a lot of, we can talk about that later, but I do a lot of things today where I don't need the feedback loop because it never needs to come because I still have the emotions. I just have them exercised in a different way.
So in some ways, it's a
I just realized how crazy that sounded.
Well, it sounds like a form of, technotherapy.
Yeah, that's what
really,
it is.
It's almost a Skinner behavioral modification.
It's a digiceutical.
In a sense, yeah, but it's not. It's like digital braces or digital PT.
Exactly. And what I noticed was one time I was having an anxiety attack, about 2015, really bad anxiety attack, really bad bout of depression. And I went on Google to starting to research my symptoms because I was sure I had cancer. I was dying again. And I came across a video of this person actually having a panic attack. And about 3 seconds in, my panic went away. And it was bizarre to realize that watching someone in a condition I was in actually would cancel mine out. And then that started a good 6-month research into, do all feelings work this way?
Do they?
So far. I mean, must be something to do with mimicking behaviors or mirror neurons or something, but I have a hard time staying in any state watching someone in that state.
Even a sexy state?
Well, that's kind of how porn works, maybe. I don't know.
Yeah, but porn is supposed to, they're supposedly in the state, and then that puts you in the state. It doesn't, cure you of the state.
That's a good point. It takes mine away. So
maybe there's some sympathetic ones that are happy.
The ones I've done is anxiety, depression, and rage. Those are the 3 I watch that I keep. I have YouTube playlists for those people having those emotions. So I try to have a dose of anxiety and depression at least once a week, and I try to have rage at least daily. So I don't carry it out into the world.
I mean, maybe they're sort of purgative moments. They're kind of cathartic.
Well, the other thing is when I watch people have difficult emotions, I also start to understand my own so much better. I've been connected to so many things and had so much feedback in my life that one of the sadder parts about what I did was I lost kind of a touch with my own self. Like, what do I need? What drives me? I also became convinced I knew what other people needed. And I don't. I don't know what people need. That's a bias. But having other people experience those emotions, and we live in an age where people don't talk about their feelings. They don't talk about the biological response. My heart's beating fast. My stomach is in knots. And if they do, it's usually very private. So, by talking about these things and explaining how I experienced them through technology and then back through myself, kind of an extra step, let's be honest, it helps at least people talk about. Now more people say, oh yeah, I have that feeling too.
Well, it's weird for me. I mean, and this is, gosh, only in the last few years I've come to realize that the names I've put on emotions are these weird judgments. Yeah. Like, oh, I'm sad, I'm envious, I'm worried. And when I start thinking of them instead as actual feelings, it's like, oh, my solar plexus feels heavy. Exactly. My fingers are kind of vibrating and numb. And it's like, well, that's the feeling.
Yes. I know, I'm with you.
Now, what do you want to say about it is a whole other thing. And it's a little bit like, when they talk about voting, it's like people vote and then they come up with their reasons later. Yeah. You make your decision, you make your purchase, and it's like, oh, well, I got that car because. It's like, no, you got that car.
Yeah. But it's such narrative driven, right? So I'm sitting here with you right now. My stomach is in knots. My heart's beating a little fast. My fingers are sweating. That's because I'm excited to be talking to you and it's hot outside and a bunch of other things. But if I were to take these exact same biological responses without the narrative of this moment and put me on a plane, I'd be having a panic attack.
Right.
So it's what I lend to it that creates it. I just had to come to terms with, as above, so below, but as outside, so within. And really start to come to terms of what is it, this human thing that I live inside of, and what am I learning about it by telling myself stories that aren't true.
But you got a lot of this almost through the contrast of all this digital stuff on. Yeah, I mean, if you read the interviews or articles about you, it looks like you're one of these technophiliac guys. Oh, I want to plug in everything and I'm going to get every adaptation. I'm going to insert my nano chip and make my brain enhanced and all that. And then you'll get hired. And I don't want to not get you hired, but you'll get hired to do talks because it's like this novelty. Oh, we've got the world's most connected man. He's going to come and he's going to read our iPhones, read our palms and tell us our future and do all this weird, oh, isn't he strange? Isn't he wonderful? Is he wearing weird prism glasses? Oh.
I get it. I mean, I get it.
But that's not but meeting you seem like this very fleshy, sweet Disney little person.
I am a fleshy, sweet Disney little person. But, reading iPhone Palmistry, right? So, I go to conferences. Conferences pay me a lot of money to sit in a booth and read people's iPhones. And people hand me their phones and I look at them and I look at the case, I look at the model, I look at the operating system, and then I'll just look at their home screen. I don't have to open anything. And I start telling them about their lives, and people fall apart. Sometimes they cry, sometimes they become overwhelmed. And I just tell them about their life. And at the end, they just feel so moved. And I say to them, now I want you to know I didn't do anything special. I looked at your phone and told you what I thought you needed to hear or what I thought was what I found out. If you don't think these are things you value, if I said to you, I think you work too much, then, and that moved you, then you need to do that. And you can have this conversation with other people. To me, the phone and iPhone palmistry is a way we can talk about the difficult things we used to talk about that we stopped.
The same way, say, the Long Island psychic.
Exactly.
Because she has the excuse, I don't mean fake or real, whatever, because she has the excuse of the dead person.
Exactly.
Your dead mother wants you to know you should be in the relationship that serves you. You should be who you are. You shouldn't worry about what it was we wanted for you. Yeah. And it's like, you should be able to sit with your friends and coffee and hear, you should be whatever gender you want to be. You should do whatever you want.
All of it. But, the phone gives us a reason to say those things. Reading someone's, and a lot of times it's just icons. A lot of times I'll see the Snapchat icon on someone's phone and I'll go, someone's recently passed away, and they're looking, and it'll be like near the F for Facebook, and I'm like, an F name, and they'll go, oh my God, my dog 2 years ago. And then so they create the connections, right? So it's basically, quantified self, or the
Meets
freakish
P.T.
version,
Barnum.
right? It really is. So, but again, I feel so fortunate that I can have that relationship with strangers. You can't walk up to a stranger and tell them the things I can tell them without holding their phone and pretending you know.
Right.
And isn't that what we all want? Don't you want to look at someone and tell them what you think they believe so you can find out if you believe it? Isn't it advice just unrehearsed discussions you need to have with yourself?
Right. But in these cases, the technology is a bit like pharmaceuticals. It's compensation for the fact that we live in this isolated, alienated, atomized world and all. And you're turning it on itself. So if the internet from AOL through Facebook era has been atomizing, you're saying, okay, but we've got all this data, we've got all these toys, we have all these things, we can use them to kind of wake up again or reacquaint ourselves with our biological and emotional selves.
And I'll be honest with you, I was nervous to come on Team Human just because of a lot of things you've mentioned, you read. But the other thing is, I think it's too late to really go back. The whole digital Amish thing, I just don't think it's possible for a large majority of people. And then I also see a lot of people just shaming other people for how they use technology. Like, you're always looking at your phone. But I hear that a lot, but you don't know why people are looking at their phones. Most of the people I have relationships with don't know how to have relationships without their phones. So the last thing I'm going to do is make someone feel bad about it, right? If you've become emotionally dependent to not know how to say you're happy without sending an emoji, who am I to judge you? Now, I can teach you what happy looks like out loud, now that I know you like to use emoji or GIFs.
Right.
But I certainly can't make you feel like crap because...
No, but if you don't know how
I'm sensitive about that.
If you don't know how to be happy without announcing it on Instagram, say, that might be a problem.
Absolutely. And we've crossed this bridge now where not only do we not know how to talk about it, we now are taking digital technology back to the real world. I hear people say all the time, I'm lulling. Right? So they'll take text speech and say it out loud. So this kind of back and forth reverberation that we're talking about that's now inside out. So the other day I was at some place and someone said, I am screaming. They actually said that. I'm like, no, you're not screaming. No, I'm as if I'm texting. So you're having the feelings. Yeah, I'm having the feelings, but I'm describing them out loud in regular speech. I'm like, okay, that's an extra step.
Right. Well, the reversal's definitely, the reversal definitely happened where, we are modifying ourselves to, optimizing humans for these technologies rather than the other way around. I know. And your work, certainly to the majority of Team Human listeners, when they hear, okay, he's doing all this stuff, he's got all this data, and then you publish these books that have the sort of sum total of the various data that you did that year, your annual reports, as they're called. They'll think, oh man, this guy's the enemy of Team Human. I mean, and you're not. I mean, you're trying to burrow down to, again, what it means to be human in a digital age.
Again, so Team Human set in 2008 would have been a much different conversation with me than Team Human in 2018. But after a decade, the idea of being human has been made such duality. If you're online, you're not human. If you're offline, you're a good human. Well, put me in an age where I don't need to answer everybody's email to feed my family, and I'll be your good human. But we live in an age where we have weaponized connections and the lack of connections. If I go to Target, I can't park my car. They removed the handicap spots at Target for people who shop online. If I go to a Chipotle to get lunch now, if I don't order online, I get butted in front of by the internet. We're creating an entitled class of people who are only rewarded for being connected. At the same time, we're telling them they're horrible for using it. We've taken away their time and their dollars, and we forced them to use these systems. And, if the world's most connected man can't say that, then we're all in big trouble.
Right. Well, it's what we were repeating with digital technology, what we did with the automobile 100 years ago.
I'm with you.
Now you got to move to the suburbs, and now we're taking away your streetcar, and now you've got to work. People in America work one day a week just to support the car that they use to drive to work. That's a good model. Luckily they had control of the government, so they externalized the private cost of the automobile to the cost of roads and everything else that we build. But that's what's happened to us digitally as well. And the other thing that happens, I mean, as you well know, you really can't yet get the same sense of organic connection through digital technology that you can in real life. You don't get the rapport. The pupils don't dilate. You don't get the mirror neurons firing.
Westworld. Did you see West?
Yeah.
Westworld did an amazing job of talking about, I would say, my work, but it's not. They didn't talk to me. But the whole concept of fidelity, when they're meeting with the host versus meeting with the humans, and when we find out that's actually a reverse fidelity going on. To your point, that's where they're like, okay, we can't cross that last bridge. We don't have all of that kind of feeling. What is that essential thing that is human? To me, it's the most provocative thing, but it's also led me into the kind of the whole mindful cyborg phase I did in 2015, where I really got into the mindfulness of technology, and now where I'm more into the pagan side of it. And you and I both are big fans of Robert Anton Wilson, and all roads lead back to that. So
you have a pagan practice?
Absolutely. I mean, my watch only ever displays. So my Google Watch basically always shows me the moon phase. And if I need to present my shock, I just move forward, and then I get the actual phase of the 12-hour cycle for the sun. So yeah, I have a lot of digital pagan practices, but I also have personal ritual practices. Full moon practices. We have retrograde coming up next week, so I have a retrograde practice that I do.
And these are extremely these are organic analog.
Yes, I do those all
practices.
Analog. Yes, yeah, I have analog practice, but I also have digital ones because let's be honest, I'm in front of a screen more than anything. So having both of them, but actually taking time to have the analog practices first connects me to other people who are interested. They're just like, oh, that's kind of weird and spooky. Let's do that together, and it works.
But your connections with people, these are mostly real world connections.
All my connections with people are real world. The problem I find is people who meet me, who do their research or read about me, suddenly expect one thing, and then they meet me and they're kind of blown away. And then they get a little, to be honest with you, they can sense my presence-ness. Mm-hmm. They can feel it. And it gets to be weird because what we used to call paying attention now feels like surveillance. So I have to practice a level of distraction just to be friends with people, which I find uncomfortable. I hate pretending not to love someone, but giving someone all your attention or talking to a cashier makes them uncomfortable.
Well, that was the problem. Timothy Leary had that problem.
Yeah, I know.
Especially after digital came, he started to see face-to-face real-world contact as super sacred. These sacred, and he would, whenever he'd be like, Douglas, and look right in your, and people would just cower because they weren't used to that that level of.
I always get that people tell me you're too intense, you're paying too much attention to me. I'm like, oh gosh, okay, I understand, and I'll act. And then the other things I have to do in a digital world, I have to ask questions twice even though I don't need to. I have to pretend I didn't hear things even though I did. The level of awareness that you can have that you then bring to the world is just unwarranted, and people don't want it. It's really disturbing. And how often I have to pretend to lose things or not know what's going on just to have my time in sync with everyone else's. Because everyone else is so distracted. We're treating life like it's multiple browsers, like multiple tabs opened up, and which tab was I in? And having to slow down that way. So I don't know if I hurt myself becoming as efficient as I did, or I helped myself by becoming as present. Because like the thing I did last year is I added a death stack to my phone. So my death stack basically tells me how every single piece of behavior is going to either add or subtract
to your longevity?
To my longevity. So I get messages all the time. You just added 23 minutes to your life. You just took an hour away from your life. The other thing I get messages throughout the day saying you're going to die soon, right? It's like randomly, there's one right there. You're going to die soon. So being constantly provoked on my own death has really helped me tremendously. But it's also made my attention and my presence really kind of hyper strong.
Right, but you're not one of those longevity people.
Absolutely not. I'm not Aubrey de Grey. No.
Right.
I'm actually looking forward to. No, I'm looking forward to being geriatric and dying nice. I've already uploaded. Let's just be honest, right? My husband, who's younger than I am, will talk to me in the future. It'll be a really bad version, but he'll talk to me.
Do you think that there's something that happens after death organically, like to your consciousness?
I mean, I feel I've always been here. I believe I'll always be here. I think I'm part of you, and you're part of me. I think when I picked up your first book, I felt like I knew you, even though I hadn't read a page yet. I think all that kind of works. I mean, we're just nodes in an organic kind of stardust network.
So your work, in some ways, it feels like, I mean, it's like mine in that what you're trying to do is help people see, look, there's an appropriate place for technology.
It's like
in
yours.
our
Hold on,
lives.
hold on. It's like yours. It is yours.
Well,
Yeah, I meant that when my first sentence was I'm a student of Rushkoff University. You can't read your history of books and not be influenced at a profound level. And I think anyone who doesn't come on this show and thank you sincerely for saving people's lives is doing the world a disservice. And I mean that. Thank you.
oh, that's sweet. I have a feeling you're the exception to the rule, but I definitely appreciate it. You know, it's about, for me, it's always been about balance. I was a TV kid and just loved the stuff, you know, Lost in Space and the robot and everything. It was, it seemed like something else was coming though, you know? And then this, and you know, the net started. It took me away from theater because it was the net and it was multimedia and it was going to be so inclusive and hypertext and non-narrative and post-linear, and it became the same old, you know, linear business thing. And most people who are doing the kinds of activities you were doing seemed to me to be people who are just priming us for further invasiveness, you know, for further invasion by these
I agree with you, but
companies.
these people that you're speaking of, I mean, you go anywhere from Ray Kurzweil to Gray. I mean, there's always people who were a little further along. When I started doing this, remember, I was really at the bottom of the barrel,
Right.
right? I didn't start getting, I totally understand why people confuse me with these kind of hyper narcissistic digital kind of celebrities, but it saved my life. It didn't make me rich. Well, I guess it got me a book deal. But I mean, it was never, I mean, the problem I find with the quantified self is these are people with first world problems who want other world problems.
Right.
You know, if you start
Right, because
from
they're afraid of third world
yeah,
problems.
so if you start from a place of entitlement and just try to get better, you're the problem.
Right.
Start from a place of entitlement and get worse. I've been poor. My parents lived in their car. I've been wealthy, or I've made $500,000 a year. Privacy doesn't exist for those two people. When you're poor, everyone knows you're poor. When you're rich, you don't care. Privacy is a middle class condition. And whenever you hear someone say privacy is eroding, what they're really saying is the middle class. You don't care about your privacy when you're rich, and you don't have any when you're poor. It's a social condition. It's the currency in which we trade actual wealth, which is time, which goes back to all of your work and time.
Right. Well, that's where I ended up.
I know.
Right,
That's
with
why I
time,
just, dude, you and time.
Because it's all you got.
You're traveling. I don't care what you know yet, but you are traveling through time. You are.
Well, the weird thing about having data, though, about your whole life.
Yeah.
and
10 years now.
It's another Westworld phenomenon. I mean, the fidelity they talked about in Westworld, as I watched that show, what I kept thinking about was, well, with all the surveillance going on, with all of my email deep in Gmail's coffers somewhere, that my past can be retrieved with increasingly perfect fidelity, so that my past won't recede the way it used to. It was like that out of focus, the trip we took to France when I was 14 years old, and there's 2 photos and it's a memory. And even if, my brother came to me now and said, "Oh, you did this when we were there." Yeah, well, maybe, but that's the way you remember it.
Exactly.
Now,
he's got the facts.
there's indelible everything for everyone. And so it almost feels as if you can't grow, you can't change.
It's present shock.
Right. The past is there with equal fidelity as the present.
Including the future. Because then you look at AI, and AI is just about to predict based on your past what you want. So I always say the real magic in technology, and when I say magic, I mean dark side, is found in 2 areas, the recent and the soon. So it's not about the past or the future. It's about what just happened to you and how to define what's about to happen to you. In our minds, not only are we dealing with narrative challenges, being nonlinear or linear, but we spend all of our time using devices that are nonlinear for a large part in a world that's linear. So, the shock we're feeling is being ripped apart at the seams there. Where I worry about what you're talking about with history being recorded is today a lot of people are on Facebook. And Facebook has a feature where it serves you your memories every day.
Right.
Which has been around for a while, which is great. That's cute. Here's my memories. But what we're finding is because of the increase in global catastrophes, disasters, shootings, a lot of people are wrapping their profile photos in banners. So here's my pro Pulse nightclub. Here's my school shooting banner. And what that means is every day you wake up to be reminded of another disaster that you believed in. We're not looking at the psychological impact when every single recorded memory on billions of people are wrapped in disasters. It's not a box of photos your mom saved. It's a box of human disasters that you have to see when you scroll through someone's photos. And I worry that we haven't really thought about the psychological impact of not only reminding you of this, but then Facebook took us what I think was the step too far, was they now allow you to go in and edit and say, I don't want to see things about that, or I don't want to see things involving that. So you've got sunshine of the spotless mind, because you can go in and edit your memories selectively now on Facebook. You can say, I want to take a break from my boyfriend on Facebook, which then they know about that. It's very, very dystopian at a level that I think we're not being honest about. Much more dystopian than robots taking your jobs. You erasing your own memories because they're uncomfortable. You're supposed to feel that's team human.
Right. You're just basically putting a restraining order on anything you don't want to know.
You're putting a
about.
restraining order on yourself from the past.
Right.
That's
Which is the opposite of, say, the myth of eternal return, where everything is here all the time. It's the opposite of reincarnation and karma, and you can eliminate it. But know what it is? It's the human version of the way corporations externalize anything that they don't want. Just take all the waste product and send it to China and let those kids deal with it.
Yeah. I just, every time I see this kind of update in our operating system or apps, it's always about removing more human interaction or kind of like allowing you to edit more of your own past. I just, we've got this fall, we've got Apple and Google both releasing tools where you can surveil your own behavior. Like, okay, and you can say, okay, I'm spending too much time on Facebook, put these digital shock bracelet on me. But the reality is, we know how that's going to be used. Parents are going to watch their kids and start locking down software. And like, you're a parent, that's your job, right? If you need software to be a parent, maybe don't have sex. And then the other thing is, I know how most couples are going to use it. As soon as there's a fight, let me see your phone. What have you been doing? We haven't thought about kind of what it means. Yes, we're enlightening people to their own behavior, kind of what I did really early on, but we're not thinking about how you weaponize it. And that's the one thing I see over and over. Apple's done more to make screenshots useful. You now can annotate them. I don't know if you've taken a screenshot on your phone. Why are they putting so much effort into screenshot technology? Hey, what, to make you better? No. It's to turn people on each other. Trump is here because we can screenshot stuff, not because he's anything else. He's a screenshot hashtag president. He's a response to surveillance. He's not anything we need to worry about.
He's the response to Anthony Weiner.
Yeah, well, yeah.
As it were.
Yeah, it's just thing. Yeah. I mean, Anthony Weiner, he went down because of screenshots. Trump is up because of them. So I think until we learn to use surveillance in kind of a meta way, we're going to continue to struggle. But I have hope. I don't want to sound all down. I do believe that things are getting better. I actually can feel it.
Well, you pushed through the surveillance thing to the other side.
Yeah, I had to.
You surveilled yourself in a way that most of us...
And gave it away.
Right.
Make it public. You can see my tax returns right now. No. You have to go all the way.
Right. I mean, the good side of that, and I think I spoke about this once, is I feels like, well, one response of society to the fact that we're all under surveillance is gay marriage. Yeah. You know what I mean? Exactly. If the guys are all having sex with each other, it's like, well, what are you going to do? Either you can't surveil them anymore, or make it okay, or the legalization of pot. It's like, yeah, what are they all doing? They're all smoking pot. They're all having sex in each other's heinies. Yeah. So what are we going to do? Well, let's just normalize those things, and then people will consent to being surveilled all the time.
But what did that do to the gay community? So,
it normalized them in perhaps a bad way, though.
That's what I'm saying. I'm a gay guy. It did. Or I'm a 50-year-old gay guy. I lived through AIDS and a bunch of other things. I mean, we've got a community now that, really has become more segregated. It's more body shaming. Go on Grindr. It's a hate group, right? If we should take anything out, just skip the alt-right and go after the people on Grindr. Because I think the minute you shame like someone for being Asian or heavy, it's just really ugly. And the data behind Grindr is really what bothers me. Grindr is one of the few apps that'll tell you if someone's walking, driving, or sitting still. And when I used to use Grindr, I'm like, I'm not, anyone who's sitting in their car war driving cock, I'm not interested in, right? Because that's what you could do, right? You could just literally drive around and look for it. And, I was
they're on the literally predatory.
Yes. Yeah. And the thing is, gay men always have this really way of adopting technology and just taking it to the absolute extreme. And it really kind of freaks. Now you see men advertising, I'm on PrEP, PrEP is this the drug HIV. For HIV, and we saw a sign. There's a Grindr the musical in London right now. I was just on a subway here in New York, and I was like, there's Grindr posters, and I'm just like, Grindr's not a model for relationships.
No, but there's different cultures around different apps and companies. So WeWork, say, is it equally strange?
They just got rid of meat. If you work at WeWork and you're an employee, you're not allowed to eat meat and expense it. They're saying it's because it's, but they were surveilling the receipts on the employee expenses, saying, we've got all this expense on food, and food is one of the things. It's a bridge too far, but it's okay.
It's interesting though, but they are creating these cultures. I mean, with specific values that are then enforced one way or another by the technology or by the platform.
Yeah. And I love looking at technologies through the lens of social media. To me, Uber is a great social network, right? Because I only Uber pool, and I get to meet new people that way, right? I only stay in Airbnbs where I stay with the host in the same house. So for me, I've always kind of tried to exploit the kind of connectedness to get me more team human, to be honest with you. But, you have to come through that bridge of being really isolated. And I think right now technology makes it too easy to be alone.
Yeah. I mean, it's funny. I'm generally a get off the device whenever you can kind of person. And, just because I work behind a computer, and one time with people, with my daughter, with you, looking in people's eyes and experiencing being human and alive rather than just working. At the same time, and people have brought it up as if it's some great inconsistency. They say, "Oh, well, you talk about getting back in the body, and here you are doing a digital podcast."
Yeah, that's shame. They're shaming you.
Exactly.
This is why I try not to talk about.
Or
it.
as if it's a very old sophomoric technique of like,
sophomoric.
You're talking against the market, but now you're selling a book.
Yeah,
it's like, where do we begin? And that's why I always say, business is not the problem. It's digital capitalism is the problem. There's differences, but with at least if you're conscious of how you're using technology, you understand the downsides, but you also understand the upside. So it's like, okay, this is an audio podcast, not video. And consciously because I know audio affects the body differently than looking at a piece of video. We can be with somebody in their car or in their ears as they jog or whatever they're doing, and sound is so intimate. You're in their body, ideally speakers in their living room, moving the air in the room against their bodies.
I can feel my breath in the mic when we.
I mean, it's like, that's. This is the closest I can get to touching. Sound is almost like touching versus some, objective picture that looks like an MSNBC talk show.
Chevron. There's no Chevron in podcast.
Well, people get all objective when you look at video, and I kind of don't want them. I want them subjective and soft and squishy.
I like soft and squishy. I'm very pro squishy. Yeah.
So what are you working on now?
Well, I have a book coming out in September called Don't Unplug. And the subtitle is How Technology Saved My Life and Save Yours Too. In the book, I have the 10 areas of my life: social media, environment, health, etc., that I mapped. A little bit of commentary and my best Rushkoff for the first couple pages of each chapter. Then a couple stories about everything from how I made my friends change colors by only liking and responding to posts where they wore certain colors. So I would see how long it took me to make people wear red, things like that. To, health and finances. I spent a lot of time tagging financial transactions with the feeling I was having when I spent the money, not the actual category for the stuff. So, and then I give some tips at the end. So that's coming out in September. I've got, speaking gigs that I'm doing all over. I was here doing EmojiCon. So I was talking about how I use emoji for emotional health. So I don't actually use a lot of words in my titles for things. In my file system, it's by emoji. So I've got, this kind of Chris level stuff. And then I'm always doing a little bit of consulting here and there.
What do they want to know from you?
Well, I'm doing some consulting with the School of Chronobiology in Pittsburgh. And usually it's just understanding kind of behavioral feedback. What type of information can you collect from someone? Obviously, people are all obsessed with data collection. But what they don't have is a language for data collection. So for me, data collection falls in 5 buckets. So you've got they're friction buckets. When I mean friction, by like how much effort does it take to collect. So the easiest bucket to fill is time. When did something happen? We're all watched by clocks. The second bucket is where. Where did something? That's also pretty easy to get.
Geolocation now, it's nothing.
But time and location together get you season, right? So we don't think about why it's important to have these layer talks is because we don't see how they interact with each other. The second layer is activity: sitting, standing, walking, driving. So any type of volition, also easy to do with GPS, right? So volition, place, and time tell you a lot about someone's life with just those 3 data points, and they're all constantly collected. The next layer is behavioral. So are you posting to Facebook? Are you in a meeting right now? My calendar says I'm in a meeting with you. Are you talking to someone? Beyond behavior, you've got biology, obviously. If you're wearing any type of wearable, you've got heart rate, et cetera,
Right.
sleep. And then on top of behavior, you have environmental. So I teach a lot of companies to use these 6 layers to understand what you can glean from or help people glean from themselves. So for instance, I don't need more pop-ups telling me I need to do things. I need pop-ups at times that are more convenient. So I'm sitting still on a bus, remind me now to do something at the grocery store, right? So I need more thoughtful notifications. So I try to help people understand how that data set can be used to make you feel more present and more alive. One of the earliest things I did with myself was I would return pictures of myself being healthy when I was being unhealthy. So the feedback loop was if I had been static for a long time and I was eating pretty bad, my phone would show me photos of me doing healthy things. So memory as a service, right? So the idea was really using these kind of conditioned states. So I didn't mean to do a consulting riff on you.
No, that's good though. Is there any way to do these sorts of things though, even individually, without just rendering yourself up onto the
Well, I mean,
Silicon
unfortunately,
Valley?
you do have to be on a device of some sort. But there's a lot we can do with IFTTT recipes, which is or Zapier. They're 2 services that you can install the devices on your phone. Some simple things. If you have an iPhone and Android, one of the things I love is I have location set up for my home. So whenever I go home, it says, "Remember, Fernando, my husband, loves you." So the minute I pull in home, before I even get inside, I get a message saying, "Fernando loves you." All of the devices on my body are named things. My watch is called Compassion. My phone is called Empathy. Whenever they connect to each other, I get reminded. So there's simple things we can do in the internet. So right, not connecting to someone else.
But isn't it ultimately, shouldn't you, if you pull in your driveway or walk into your home and you get the message, "He loves you," shouldn't you use that as a cue, transfer that to something else? So you get that message, and then you can look at your house and say, we talk about magic. I'm going to now, whenever I see the front door, I'm going to remember Fernando loves me. So you train yourself to do that. So you create a new anchor. So it's anchored in the real world.
I don't talk about my digital magic, but I do a lot of digital magic. I collect photos, and when I've been out of town and Fernando's alone, I'll actually have the house condition itself to be a memory or a romantic dinner. So the lights will go into the same colors, the temperature will change, and it'll be kind of a warming way to remind him that I'm there. He'll text me and say, "I just got your feeling." I'm way into what you're saying, but there's a level also of kind of creepiness about that.
Well, right. Someone who's in a relationship with you will know that
exactly,
this is the
right?
way that you
They're
express
dating me.
your love.
Exactly. So, even Alexa is set up to remind him if he's in the kitchen cooking that I love him and that I'm thinking about him. So, again, to me, the technology, as much as connected as I am, has become a beacon, a sigil, if you would, for my love. It doesn't if I'm going to be surveilled, I'm going to love through it.
And has anything bad happened yet? Has there been any sort of surveillance downside to what you've done as a company? Figured something out, or the government come crashing through your door?
No, I've done some stuff with some kind of larger corporations that I saw end up in their work. Save it for the book. But
But you haven't felt personally.
No. I'm sure you get questions. You're like, you wrote a book, but you're about no capitalism, but you wrote a book. Yeah, I get questions all the time. Like, aren't you afraid someone's going to steal your identity? If you want my identity, you deserve it. No, nothing yet. The problem isn't the privacy around identity. The problem is we're dependent on it. Right? If someone's going to steal my identity, that's you lose your wallet, right? But the problem is the fact that I'm so dependent on my wallet. Right. So I don't know. I'm really weird about it. I on my Twitter profile, I'm post privacy. I'm so hung up with the fact that we're not addressing the actual problem. We can't get rid of all these systems until everything collapses.
Well, right. It's like you can't de-electrify the world. So, You're not going to de-internet it either.
Yeah. So nothing horrible yet. And who knows, maybe in the future. But again, what a good story. We don't have an Edward Snowden for the body. I wish we did. It'd be interesting if that happens to me. But every employer above a certain size is monitoring they take blood from their employees. They monitor, I don't need to tell you, what we're doing at employee wellness is probably the biggest scam there is out there.
Well, it's its biggest oxymoron since human
Exactly,
resources.
right?
Yeah.
Human resources, employee wellness, right? And those are and I worked in that field.
Right.
You know, one of the big healthcare companies I went to in 2014 was a. So yeah, I mean, I know some ugly stuff. And it goes back to this Richard Tapio, who's a mathematician I like. He says, we don't know how to measure what we care about, so we care about what we measure. And, you know, productivity is one of those things that, well, we can measure it, so let's care about that.
Well, that's the whole thing. I mean, digital is trapped in metrics of one kind or another. It's quantifiable.
Yeah.
And it can't quantify anything that can't be quantified.
Yeah, exactly.
And I keep worrying that the more we focus on quantifiable or transactional aspects of existence, the more we actually believe that the ideal blockchain can account for everything, the more we fall into the trap that human experience can be accounted for.
Yeah. Quest for Fidelity should be the book after this one.
Yeah, because the real human is the stuff that falls between the cracks.
Yeah, the real human for me is like when I email you, Doug, and I need to ask you for a favor or just something. Just tell me, I think I sent you an email just saying I'm thinking about you. I want to send you flowers. The fact is that even though I wanted to send you flowers, I felt guilty for emailing you because I didn't want to take a second of your time away. So when I construct emails or do messages, I'm thinking about the future, about the consumption. And I hate taking someone's life away. When I get something and I have to click unsubscribe, I almost wish someone hurt every time I clicked unsubscribe. Because what they're doing is they're taking a second away from the people I love. And even though I'm sending you an email to tell you that I'm thinking about you and I love you, I'm still taking that away from you. And that's the essence. You'll never capture that in a system. The fact that I care more about being a good ancestor to Doug Rushkoff than I do to like anything else. You know, I care about people's future, and isn't that what being human's about?
Yeah, well, I have a feeling that, you know, only those who've really experienced the onslaught of what email can do and how it can, I mean, I've made choices. I'm either going to answer emails this year or write a book.
Yeah.
You know, that
and you need to tell people they need to be that blunt. They're either going to have a family or they're going to answer email.
Right.
It really is. It's that simple. It's that simple. You're either going to eat healthy or you're going to eat fast.
I mean, the best was when I was going through, got up to like 2,000 emails a day I was getting, and I just couldn't read them all. It's like, what the hell am I going to do? I wrote to Cory Doctorow because, you know, he's a really great take. If people don't know, he's on Boing Boing. He's a science fiction writer. I wrote him this email and said, Cory, I'm getting all these emails. I don't know what to do. How do you respond? What can I do? And I got an automated reply that said, I'm sorry, I'm not answering my emails right now. I'm working on a book. If it's about book business, do this. If it's this. And I was like, thank you. You know, and I realized I didn't resent him at all for that. And the real reason why I'm answering some of the emails I answered is because I'm afraid the person who sent it will be mad at me for not having done it.
Or you're thinking about the future.
Maybe they've read my book and they feel like, well, now they deserve some customer service on it. Or
you're a help desk for your ideas.
Right.
Yeah.
We all are help desks for our ideas. Where I resent it is when someone hasn't read the book and wants me to basically summarize it for them in an email. That's sort of mean. But
but there's all sorts of email abuse too. I mean, I like what Dr. O does with his emails, but one of the things that really bothers me is if you send someone an email and you get an out of office response, and then a minute later you get an actual response from them, I literally want to say, you're basically abusing me. Because like a majority of your people, aren't getting past the filter, but like I'm important. Don't use your out of office response if you're being selective. What you're doing is teaching other people to ignore people right in front of them. There's all of these kind of subtle digital habits that we use as crutches, sent from my iPhone as an excuse for misspelling. Just feel okay with the fact you don't spell well, right? I just wish we could call the crutches what they are and just be honest about why we use them. I don't know. Have you ever answered an email with your out of office turned on?
I haven't used one yet.
Okay. So yeah, I'm real careful about that. I don't like to set a precedence.
I've never been out of my office.
That's a good point.
The world is my office.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
But like I was saying to you, I'm so thankful that people do email you and you're a good man, Douglas.
Well, thank you. You're a good man too.
Thank you.
Thank you for what you're doing and not using it to just tell everyone to buy implants, but rather to reconnect with, really just to help make visible aspects of our humanity that may have been occluded by modernity.
Yeah. Yeah. And, we're entering an age, that I'm most concerned, and why I think the book, I'm so happy about it's coming out. We're entering an age now where the screens are going away. Let's be honest, right? People worried that our kids are going to be, text neck and everything. It's going away. We won't have iPhones in front of us in 10 years. 2028, write me and say I was wrong, right? There's no phones you're staring at in 2028. If you look at the devices coming out of Apple and Google over the last 3 years, they've either been in your body, AirPods, or in your home, or in your car, right? So if we can all just agree for a moment that there are no screens in the future, right? Then we have to say, okay, you might be right, but why would that make you worry? Isn't that a good thing? No, because I know for a fact that once you lose the interface, someone else turns you into a puppet, right? And the data it takes to make you a puppet is much scarier than someone ignoring you during dinner.
Right.
So if you thought,
at least we knew where the screen was.
I know where your attention is. Exactly. So life after the interface is which I thought that would have been a good name for the book, but publishers are scary people, very scary publishers.
Well, Barnes & Noble owns our titles now, while they're still around. They I had a title of a book rewritten by, and a cover, everything.
Yeah, I mean, okay, so I guess I'll say it now. Yeah, Barnes & Noble rewrote my title too. Yeah.
Yeah, well, you're in a proud pantheon.
Yeah, I know. My book was called I Am You Tomorrow because I wanted people to actually be hopeful that, okay, you can be like crazy connected like Chris Dancy and actually still care about people. Yeah, you can. But, they like the idea of don't unplug, which is also a message of the book. Don't go backward, go forward. Yeah.
You don't have to unplug. No, but you definitely have to join.
But when you unplug, just don't come back online because we call that resurrection and that creates religions. Right.
Oh my gosh. And then people unplug anyway. They're on Bluetooth.
Yeah, again, you can't unplug. And even if you are one of these people who walks around with a flip phone like Anna Wintour, the problem is in 2018, the people you're talking to are just large devices. Right? They're in their device world, even though they're acting. Going to a gay bar today, it's like you can see the scruff gay guys, you can see the grinder gay guys, you can see the little app groups. We used to call them cliques, but now they're app groups, right? And it's so wild because I'm like, oh gosh, I don't want to live in a world where everything is an app. Because let's be honest, you don't download apps, you download habits. And a habit looks a lot different in a world without screens. So I really wish we were to start getting there, but I really have hope. I feel we're in a good time. I feel things are turning around. I know people probably think that's crazy, but I also said a while ago, that things were going to get bad, and they did. So
right. No, and I'm trying to look at this period, Trump and all, as just certain things that have been repressed are now very visible, very vocal, very present and out there. And so when you got to deal with it, it's when your hernia pushes through and you're like, oh, well,
you're so visual.
Going to have to do something here.
I heard someone once, Trump was, the day Trump was elected, someone said something. And then like a week later, I read my favorite Trump political quote. And I try to avoid politics because it's a non-winnable game. But the quote I heard was, sunlight's the best disinfectant. And I love the permit patties, all the kind of mimification of people who are just raging against each other and against the machine, and calling people out. Because again, I think I'd rather know you hate me and just work with that than not know. I worked in a system before where I never saw it. Yeah, I deepened my voice when I was at work so people wouldn't know I was gay. I tried to use neutral pronouns before we even had pronounless speech as a mandated thing. But at least now I know when where it's okay and where it's not. I mean, I put myself in airplane mode, not my devices.
Airplane mode. Maybe that's our title of our thing. Yeah. I put myself in airplane mode. Well, Chris Dancy, thank you for being on Team Human.
Thank you so much.